All right, y'all, what's going on? This is Stats and Scars, week 2 edition with the analyst and medical guy. We appreciate you guys joining in. If you haven't already, if you're looking for an outlet source that debunks the mainstream media and gives you a real, authentic, unscripted take on the NFL and college football, you can check out our episodes in our bio. It'll be under our link tree. There's all different sorts of platforms in there, but you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube if you haven't already. So new time listeners, you can catch the live that we had on Sunday on all platforms. This episode airs Stats and Scars every Thursday at 8 a.m. and Challenge and Script with our college football College Gameday predictions on the game airs every Friday at 8 a.m. That way you get a little taste of college football before the Saturday frenzy begins. But this show is to give you a breakdown on injury analysis and statistical analysis from two ball knowers in their specific categories. So we got the medical guy and the analyst here to join us once again for week 2. We appreciate y'all joining us and welcome in everybody back to the show. Let's get things rolling. So last week we covered week 1. There wasn't too much content to talk about, but this week we're busy. You know, it's week 1 is underway. I know the medical guy's got a lot of injuries to talk about. And the analyst has finally some stuff to go, some stats to go off of. I did kind of joke around earlier off the record and sent Ryan a Justin Fields passing chart where it was just
he's taking after Russell Wilson, baby.
Yeah, just the sidelines.
That was abysmal.
All I said was Ryan with 3 periods, and I was like, you gotta see this. So yeah, we're gonna tackle it all for you guys, and in about 30 to 40 minutes, all of it in a bite-sized format, and you'll get all of your information good to go. And then keep in mind, at the end of the episode, we'll be talking a little bit about college football and our intriguing picks this weekend, because we know a lot of you guys enjoyed that on our previous episode. And this time, Ryan will be joining us for that. So let's get started. Yeah. I got a lot of good feedback from that. I had some guys from work come to me and say, hey, look, I've been, listening to your podcast. So some good buzz around in week 1, and there's a lot more to come with that. So without further ado, the medical guy, I know you got some insider track news on a couple injuries. Not to be punny for season 1 with track, but what do you got for us in terms of injury updates?
Yeah, so like you said, week 1 didn't really have too much. Week 2, a lot of high-end names, a lot of high-end fantasy names and stuff like that to go over. So we'll get it started. I think the biggest one right now is the sorry, Ryan, but the Christian McCaffrey one. And this is one of those where it's like, you hate to be right, but you are. Calf strains, Achilles stuff is never as just simple as it seems. However, I do kind of find appreciation in that, like, they're taking their time with it. Because like I've said before, like, you may feel good, but it's always, all right, you got another week or 2 before you're ready. And so, they deemed it as Achilles tendonitis. Obviously, it's feeding from that calf strain, calf tightness, because it's connected. Okay, so I don't know if they officially rule him out this week or not.
Well, funny you should say that. He actually, I don't know what the deal is, because on PFF, he was like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the heck's going on.
Well, then after the game,
no official reasoning yet.
Jordan Mason Jordan Mason in the middle of the field was like, yeah, I knew since Friday I was starting. And so then Kyle Shanahan had to go on the podium and was like, no, I told him, like, because that's a major NFL violation.
Yeah.
Because they did disclose the injury. It's like the whole reason people wanted to sue Joe Burrow for his hand, because they didn't, disclose it. But anyway, not to cut you off, but Kyle Shanahan had to go back on the podium post game and was like, no, I said, like, you need to be ready to start on Friday. Not you are starting on Friday.
Yeah.
So they're keeping Mason away from the mics.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that, like, that was the headline from that, is like, dude goes off for a game, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, why did he mention this? And it's like, give the guy a break. But anyway,
I agree.
Expect him. I would expect him to probably miss week 2. Like you said, like we've talked about, you play a 17-week schedule. Only one bye week, and you either get lucky and it's kind of towards the end of the year, or you get screwed and it's week 5. And so I would assume they would play that safe, considering how much of how much of an asset he is to that team. So, but to go into more injuries, we kind of got a double doozy here at the Miami Dolphins with A-Chain and Mostert. So Mostert has already been ruled out with a chest injury. Obviously, anything chest, abdomen, lung, cavity area is like something you really don't play with. A-Chain, it was his leg, knee. So, you know, if you're hurting for running backs, look at their backups. I would expect even if A-Chain is able to go, it'll be on a limited type thing. Yet again, you know, they're a high-flying offense. They're two really good running backs, and obviously they need them. And both of them are obviously really fast and fit that scheme. So, like, when they're not there, you know, you can see some of that speed kind of dip off a little bit. And we just know how much of a weapon both of them are. Second is someone who unfortunately has ended up on the injury list throughout his career, Keenan Allen, questionable with a heel injury. Also, you know, I think Rome Odunze was also listed on the injury as well. So that's two receivers for that Bears offense, you know, that didn't score an offensive touchdown.
They cannot get it right.
Yeah, that just
sucks,
had
man.
a tough time. So hopefully he's okay, but they did list him on the injury report. So, you know, be kind of conscious with that right there. Don't know how many of those Bears receiver backups you necessarily want to go with, considering how their offense is. So, you know, just keep that in mind. Next is T. Higgins. He was held out, you know, right before game time with a hamstring injury. Like I've said plenty of times before, for those fast twitch guys, you know, you just got to play that one safe. And I'd expect him to probably miss another game. However, I do expect more offense from the Bengals. You can't have much less. So I would expect a little more, but I would expect him to be out again. And, you know, frustrating thing with that is that they don't have like a Tyler Boyd that could step in as that wide receiver 2 role or wide receiver 1B role and kind of fill in. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
But Jared, why is that?
Say what?
Why don't they have Tyler Boyd there anymore?
Oh, because he left to go to the Titans. That's why. And because they paid their quarterback. Sorry. Because they paid their freaking quarterback, a lot of things change.
Yeah.
And it's not as easy to operate. I've mentioned a lot of times with the 49ers, I even put it on my power rankings on Instagram, that, you know, once you get off that Walmart salary, if you're a late round draft pick, I mean, things get a little difficult. So you wonder why, you know, they're begging for money and doing all this stuff and holding out, and then you get dropped footballs in the end zone. So according to Manning,
it happens. They still got Jamar, but
I see a lot of this in between plays with Joe Burrow. If you're watching that clenching of the fist, like fuck, my elbow hurts, sort of thing. I'm nervous, man. I got some concerns.
Yeah. But I was going to ask you about that, Jacob, but go ahead.
Yeah, he's probably going to get there.
No, you're good. And then next is David Njoku, ankle injury. He's been ruled out. So I don't even know who the backup tight end is there, but I would assume they'd have a little bit of showing on offense now that they're not playing the Cowboys. Because, I mean, not to get on that rant, but they did do very good against them. But he's a big target that's going to be out. Next is also our tight end, Jake Ferguson, that we love. They did come out and say that he did have more of a bone bruise, which, if we recall last year, yes, those aren't as intense as like a MCL grade 2 or anything like that. However, we saw Travis Kelce miss some time, struggle a lot last season towards the end of the season, you know, with speed and quickness and agility and stuff like that. So to me, if I was playing it safe, I would say this would be a good time to not play him. So expect him either to not play, or if he does play, it's going to be on a limited amount because there still is a lot of pain. And like I said before, game time is different than practice. So, you know, you get out there and you try to cut, and then all of a sudden it's like, yo, this shit hurts. Okay. Next, Jordan Love, obviously MCL. It obviously looked gross and everything. I would assume he'd be out for 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the grade of it. How they're talking about it is he kind of escaped one right there. So I don't know if I don't know if I'd necessarily go pick up Malik Willis, but maybe go find, like a Baker Mayfield or a Jared Goff on waiver wires and go grab them. But expect that to be a 3, probably 2 to 4 week thing. Next, Hollywood Brown, AC joint. He wasn't listed as out this week. But it is an AC joint. Like I said last week, it's all good and dandy until you get hit and blown up there, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, can't lift my arm. So
Yeah,
I would expect him to be on a limited snap count or some type of special packages that they're going to run there, especially with how well that offense kind of functioned last week and the weapons they have right now. So just keep an eye on that. Puka Nacua, he had a PCL sprain. They have ruled him out. He is on the IR, so it's going to be at least 4 weeks. I'd expect more towards the 5 to 6. Best example of someone who's come back too quick from a PCL tear or sprain, our own Ezekiel Elliott. When he hurt his knee, when he did that, he never had the surgery, which you don't necessarily have to have surgery for that. But if you come back too quick, obviously we saw where his career kind of derailed a little bit, and he lost what everybody says is his juice, his quickness, and what made him Ezekiel Elliott. So just be prepared when he comes back. It may not be the same Puka Nacua. He may come back in 5-6 weeks, but it might be 8 weeks before it's like, oh, this looks like the old Puka. Okay. Next, Jordan Addison, big receiver over at Minnesota, who they also looked really good this past weekend.
they did. Yeah.
And he had an ankle sprain, just got rolled up on, questionable. I'd assume he'd be able to go, but it still might be a little less than what 100% is for him. And then last, Kenneth Walker, running back for the Seahawks, number 1 right there, had an abdominal injury. He actually had surgery in the past on an abdominal injury, I believe last year. And so just it would be smart to stash or pick up the Charbonnet guy from there, because be expected for him to miss some time, especially having that same injury last year. He didn't even practice. I don't believe he's practiced yet this week and is ruled day-to-day and questionable, but I would be highly surprised if he plays. If he does, I think Charbonnet will get most of the snaps there. So that kind of wraps up my injury list. Do y'all have any questions about any of those, or anybody y'all are interested about, or anything like that?
No, the one I was going to ask about was Puka, because I didn't know. I'm glad you said something, because I didn't know he was official, or not officially. What is he on the IR? Because I saw that he was more than likely going to miss 4 weeks. But in terms of fantasy, for those people that are interested, this is kind of, I guess, my side of the ballpark is like guys that I believe is Whittington, and Tyrell Johnson. Those 2 guys are probably your replacements if you're looking for if you're in a 12-man league, kind of a deep wide receiver. Those are probably some good pickups for you to grab if you're looking for somebody to get 4 or 5 receptions. And I think they're still without Tyler Higbee, going with Colby Parkinson, not the disease, but the tight end, to get some reps in with there. But keep in mind, over there with Kyron Williams. He's the type of guy that we thought was going to get a pretty big workload, but at the same time, Sean McVay has expressed that being in a situation that the Rams are in week 1 September football, we did want more snaps for Blake Corum, but we wanted a guy that we can trust in a big time scenario in September football. So a lot of stuff at play and moving parts for the Rams. It's really tough to manage if you're a fantasy owner. But yeah, with injuries and stuff, I'd be curious. I know there hasn't been much information out there, but I feel like Mark Andrews was bruised up somehow in week 1, and I just haven't heard much. But I expect a much larger workload for him this week. But I don't know if you've heard anything on Mark Andrews or not.
I haven't heard anything. But he did. I believe last year he fractured that fibula, and so that's where Isaiah likely stepped in for a majority of the year there and really kind of made a name for himself. So it could still be getting back to game speed. But yeah, I do agree. He looked a little slow. And I guess fantasy wise and whatnot, it was a little disappointing of a week for fantasy owners for him, which I have him in 2 leagues. And so haven't read anything, and he didn't pop up on anything. But yeah, it could be something that's still like getting back into game shape, and
That's right.
Maybe more of a mental thing with that as well. So,
all right, analysts, any questions from your end on injury analysis? I know you got concerns with CMC, but other than that,
yeah, I'm having the fantasy luck this year. I have Jake Ferguson in one league. I have David Njoku in our league. I have Christian McCaffrey in our league. I have Kenneth Walker in our league. So I'm just like I'm battling the waiver wire, looking through things, trying to figure out like how to salvage these absolute atrocity that happened to me in this week one. But we can talk about fantasy another time, and everybody can hear my sorrows later. But I'm really more concerned about like, and going into the year, we already kind of touched on a little bit, but Joe Burrow, man, I saw that video and where he's been. It's just like I don't know how nobody is, or the media is not really talking about this. Like he does not look the same as he did even last year. I mean, they looked atrocious on offense. Granted, a lot of people didn't look good on offense, and I have some of that in my stats.
Yeah,
but the week one is hard because it's like, this is the first time you're going to see your starters play an entire 4 quarters, and it's not your high school 4 quarters where it's 12 minutes or 10 minutes, or your college game. It's NFL 15-minute full blast right out the gate, and usually offenses look funky in the first week, and they just looked out of sync. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because Jamar Chase hasn't been there, and he was without T. Higgins, but he's coming off the field, moving his wrist, looking like it's bothering him, like Jared was saying. I mean, something's up, and I would like to know what's up with that, because he is considered one of the biggest quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's like it's time to know what's going on there, in my opinion. But that's the only concern I have.
Yeah, I do know that the surgery that he did have last year, and the stuff with that, is that it does affect like the range of motion and the vascular systems that go through there, and the nervous, or the more nerve part of it and whatnot. So it could be affecting them. I mean, it's just like if you've had surgery on anything else, like for example, when I had UCL surgery. I mean, to this day, if I hit my so-called funny bone or my ulnar nerve on a chair, like it's debilitating. It's not like ow, I just hit it. Like, the first 2 years after I had my surgery, like if I would hit that nerve, like I'd have to take a beat. Like I'd have to walk around for a second. And so it is one of those things where if you hit on that scar, or where you had surgery, or where those nerves were affected when you were cut into, like it could cause some type of weird sensation or pains or anything like that. So that definitely could be a possibility.
Yeah, I can talk to that too with my knee surgery. My nerves on the inside of my knee are still, weird. When I first got it, and when I was playing it, like Sam, I was always nervous about it because I couldn't feel the inside of my leg there, right on top of my calf for a good while. And I guess maybe that's part of it, is just being like comfortable again, kind of like we were talking about with Mark Andrews, but it's just odd. So
yeah. All right, so let's move on into the DB list candidates for week 2. This time we got it in the middle of the episode instead of the end. That way you guys catch the action. We'll start off with the medical guy. Give me your DB list candidates.
All right, I got a couple. Okay, first off on my DB list is the College Football Ranking Committee. Okay, I don't know if y'all saw, because y'all might be in the dumps because of A&M losing, and then having to play the McNeese State or whatever they played this week.
Yeah,
but obviously A&M, and I'm supporting A&M right now, so write the date down. They lose to Notre Dame, who was ranked and apparently has, this elite defense and everything and whatnot. And then immediately, boom, bounced out of the top 25. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. I mean, they didn't look great, but we'll stay away from that.
Yeah.
And then Notre Dame goes and loses to, no offense to the Dogs over there at Northern Illinois.
Yeah, Northern
NIU.
Illinois.
Yeah, NIU, to the Dogs over there. Okay. They go and lose to them at home. Pay them $1.6 million to come play them and then lose to them. And then they're ranked 18th. How does that make any sense? Like,
Can't
I mean,
stand
it's a pay me game, and you go in and make them come to your house with your elite defense and all this stuff, and then lose, and you're like, oh, dude, you gotta be balanced, right? And then you're not like 25. I could even understand a little bit if it was 25, but it's 18. That doesn't make sense to me. I know that probably rubs y'all the wrong way, but like that just makes zero sense to me how they just moved back 9 spots. Like,
yeah, I
come on.
I hate it. I think they're one of the most overrated teams in college football, which why it pains me inside to lose to them week 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been like that for a long time with Notre Dame. So
It
Yeah.
also makes A&M's loss look much worse.
Worse.
Well, anyways, moving on to number 2, the Cleveland Browns. Okay.
yeah,
Not trying to be an overreaction, but like a lot of like sports media said this, and I kind of agree. Like, I mean, you gave Deshaun Watson $230 million guaranteed, no questions asked, which probably not the best move there. And he's been like bottom 2 quarterback ever since then. And obviously his off the field stuff is definitely a terrible thing.
It's a bit worse.
Yeah, and I think like part of my take has it's gotten to the point to where Deshaun Watson might be a worse quarterback than he is a worse human being, and that's saying something. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my god,
I was
like,
gonna say that.
What a take! And
Yeah.
so,
Hey, it's not far off now though. He looked abysmal
yeah,
on Sunday. I was talking to Jared about it. I'm not sure if the Cowboys defense was just that confusing because they did play a good game. Like
yeah,
I was texting y'all during the game. Like they looked like it was confusing as hell. They would fill one side, blitz from another. I mean, I get that, but like he was just missing throws like crazy. I mean, it was bad.
yeah. It was just not good to look at, and then to be an organization and see people like Brissett and Baker Mayfield like have success. Like, I mean, Jacoby Brissett won a game, and Baker Mayfield looked like Oklahoma Baker Mayfield. And so to see that, and then what you necessarily gave up for that type of human and player now, that's just in the dumps. And then also always seeing that sports graphic that they post for every Cleveland football game. It's like amount of quarterbacks since 1999, and it's like 45, and it's like yikes. And so that rounds off number 2. And then number 3 for me has to be the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young. That's just looking like just a dumpster fire over there. Nothing against. I really hope Bryce Young turns out to be good, but like the owner, nobody likes him. Like the coach is. I don't know if you've read his history, but go look at his history.
Yeah, it's interesting.
He's kind of a piece of shit.
He's sleazy, dude. He's sleazy.
Yeah,
no way around that one.
Yeah, there's no way around it. And then you do all the, and like they put out like the PFF grades of like Bryce Young's offensive line, and it was like a solid grade. Like I think the lowest grade was like a 70, and he had like a couple of 80s on there and like 190, and it's like you had protection, you got Thielen, you got Deontay Johnson, you have the Jonathan Mingo, like you've got Hubbard, you got a little bit of weapons over there, and like he looked awful. What was it? First pass of the game was like a pick.
Yeah,
might have been a pick 6 or something like that. But it was
first and 10, and we're threading the needle over the middle. Like
and it wasn't even close. And so that's looking like to get dominated like that, but like it made the Saints look like the greatest show on turf. And we all have our opinions on that. And
they ain't.
And so it was just like seeing all that and the stats come out and like seeing the other picks that came in that draft, and you're just like, yikes, this looks rough. So that rounds up my 3 on the DB list. I would like to open the floor to both of y'all for what y'all's DB list candidates are.
Yeah, I'll let Ryan do it, but I want to add to the Browns one because I shared it with you guys. The funniest thing I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
that dude calling that live show and saying, "I got 2 words for you guys, or 2 stats for you guys. Y'all figure it out later." 42.9 and 144.8 in there, or whatever the numbers were. And he's like, "What is this? Well, what is this?" He's like, "It's Deshaun Watson's passer rating." Baker's passer rating. Oh, you son of a bitch! We're not doing this right now. And I'm like, oh my god.
What was even funnier about that was the timestamp. Did y'all see when that call was placed? It was 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was
we're not doing
like the rush hour like sports show that you're catching, and it's just like, oh, first caller's just wrecking his shit, and he's like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? And it's like, bring the next caller. I don't know if you listened all the way to the end, but his co-host was like, it's tough. He's not coming back. And then the guy's just silent for like 5 seconds. And he's like, give me the next caller. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that dude was in shambles, but I don't blame him, man. Well, shoot, Jacob took my first 2, but mine, I was going to go DB list. My first one was Notre Dame for sure. That's totally embarrassing. You come off a big win to A&M, and then you get beat at home by that. This is my obvious one, by NIU. And I mean, if you actually watch that game, like, I had 2 screens on for college football all weekend. I was excited, and I was switching games. I was texting all my boys, and like, Turner was one of the guys that brought it up to me. He's like, dog, go check out the Notre Dame game. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I like look it up on my phone, and I see the score, and I was like, no way. I turned it on, and they looked abysmal. It was crazy. But Notre Dame is so overrated, man. That quarterback, I kind of said it last week when we talked about it. Like, if you flip the A&M and Notre Dame game, like Notre Dame, if they lost, people would have been talking about how their offense didn't look good either. And it kind of showed in this next game. I know A&M, you can't really compare because they played McNeese, and then my other one that Jacob took, we just talked about, was Deshaun Watson and the Browns, man. They signed a deal with the devil, and they're taking their lickings now because Deshaun Watson, I still, like I've been saying for a while, that I don't think he's the same player because he's dealing with so much guilt that it's like like Game of Thrones when you're walking down from the sept and you shame. It's that where he's dealing with so much guilt that like I don't think he can physically play football anymore. But the other part of that is like, how much does he actually have to, because they fully guaranteed his contract. He could go sit the bench or get cut, and I'm pretty sure he would still get the full $230 million, which is just like, why even change anything? Like, I'm facing another sexual assault allegation, my 45th one in the last 3 years. Like, why? Like, why go change anything? It's terrible. Yeah. But my other 3 that I had on there, and I'll run through these pretty quick, was Michigan fans, and that they bought everything last year. I mean, I remember before the game, and I was like, I work with a bunch of UT guys, and they are all like, I don't know, Michigan's still pretty good. And I told them, I was like, y'all gonna boat race them. Like, they lost 10 offensive starters. The only thing they got left is the cover of NCAA, Donovan Edwards. And then like everybody else is gone. The head coach is gone. Like, everybody's gone. That team is not anywhere. Like, I don't think they win more than 7-8 games this year.
Give me Nebraska.
Yeah. No, we're getting there. My next one is Jalen Hurts INT defenders. I don't know if y'all remember during training camp, everybody was talking about how he didn't throw an interception all training camp. Well, if you watch the game, and it was on Peacock, and they were trying to make everybody fly for that one, other guys reference. But he almost threw 3 or 4 interceptions in that game. Me and Jared were watching it at our parents' house. He already threw 2. They're driving down the field to take the lead, and they run like a fake screen fly route, a little wheel route, something you would try in NCAA, and they covered it perfectly. And instead of just throwing it out of bounds, he turns and looks at the screen guy and throws it straight to the cornerback. And I'm like, what are you doing, bro? So
elite.
Yeah, he's leading the intercept. Like I think he's going to throw a couple dumb interceptions this year. He's already thrown like 2 that were not good looking. But and then my last one, and this is my big one, is anybody with the last name Sanders and the record label that signed Shatter Sanders.
Oh, God.
Oh my God, that was an ass whooping. And what's even worse about that is that, you know, I'm a big North Dakota State guy. I was singing my praises when they played them. They lost, but like North Dakota State is no joke. They're not as good as they used to be, but they won 7 out of 8 like FCS championships back when I was at Sam. Like they were the Bama. They were the guys that you did not want to play in the playoffs. They were mean green machines. And when they got to Colorado and almost beat them, Colorado was treating it like it was like a damn playoff game. You know, they were chirping them on Twitter. They were chirping them on X, whatever you want to call it, you know, saying like, oh, we're the better Bison. And it's like, dude, it's an FCS team. You got to play Nebraska next week. So they go to Nebraska. They get their ass handed to them. And then you have Shatter Sanders walking off the field 2 minutes before the game's over. He goes into the press conference afterwards and is blaming his offensive line again. And then there's reports out that like Dion wants his son's song to be played instead of the fight song. I don't know if that's true or not, but like
he said it wasn't, but I don't know.
That whole that whole Colorado atmosphere and everything they've got around there is just a bunch of crap. Like they're going to be terrible. And on top of that, they, you know, next year when Shatter leaves, the other thing about Dak's contract that's so nice is I don't have to hear this stupid BS like that they're going to draft Shatter Sanders and make Dion the coach. Like, why? They suck. They can't even beat Nebraska. Now Nebraska's better this year, but oh my God, that was a game. That game was like, I wanted to switch my TV off of that game, but I didn't because I enjoyed it so much. Like Nebraska just went in there and beat the hell out of them. And so
I was in there searching the guide for like Hawaii versus Albany State so I could watch something else. Like, because it was, I agree with you. And we talked about it off script. It was like, I feel a little bit sorry for like a lot of the players because like it looked like there was no deception, there was no change. And like, to be honest, I feel pretty bad for Shatter as well, because like you got to think about like how much pressure and stress it is, you know, having to do that, but also playing for your dad. And I feel like, to me, honestly, if he was playing somewhere else, it'd be a totally like I think he would be better somewhere else. Because I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a bad quarterback at all. And like, but you could see like that offense, like if he's not perfect, awful. Like they looked like they were the FCS team playing Nebraska. And and then to hear the report about the fight song, whatever, I was like, this is almost too wild to believe it's true.
Yeah, I just don't know how much more people can put up with it. And like my thought process behind it too is like, if I'm an offensive line guy and like I'm having a block for a quarterback that's constantly blaming my ass, when at the moment we get hit in the mouth, I'm like, dude, I'm not blocking, you know, like, or I'm not giving it my all. I see a blitz, like I'm going to try and hit him, but like you're back there blaming me for everything, but you can't hit your receivers. We've got a coach over there that's your daddy, and all you're going to do is if I go over to the coach and be like, hey, you need to go get in this quarterback's ass and get him right, and like we need to go out there and play some ball, you're going to blame me because you're the dad of the it's daddy ball. Like that's the way I look at it. Like I I know you feel bad for Shatter, but I don't, because nobody's holding him accountable for how he's playing. Like, you know, he can go do it against an FCS team, but we haven't seen him beat or even play up to par against a good team. Like Oregon kicked their teeth in to the point last year that they called, you know, the NCAA and was like, hey, they're cheating. And it's like, no, Oregon just came into town and whooped your ass. That's all that happened. So I don't know. That's how I feel about them. I think they're a joke. And I'm not even sure. Like, I think Travis Hunter is going to be a good NFL player.
Like a stud.
Yeah, he is a stud. Like,
Looks to
but
be.
I just don't know about Shador because of his mindset. Like, I've seen guys do it where they've got all the talent in the world, but the moment things go south, they're just like they start pointing fingers. And when is Shador going to go up on a pedestal or get up on a mic and be like, "Hey, you know what? I didn't play my best game. Those guys are playing their butt off. Like, I've got to be better if we want to do all this talk, and I'm going to make rap songs. I've got to go out there and beat or get competitive with one of these teams because it's not like it's Ohio State, it's Nebraska. Now I think Nebraska's going to be good, but like, come on, it's somebody that hasn't been good for a long time. So
Yeah. I've done my fair share of hate of Colorado, I guess is what people call it. It's fair evaluation of Colorado, but I've done my fair share of it on X. But I mean, we'll get into it more in the college football part towards the end with our 2 winners and 2 losers. My 2 DB list ones, and I'll make this one quick because they're just funny just saying it out loud. I don't know if you guys saw this one, but I guess I'll call him Big Unk. Shannon Sharp.
Oh my God.
Caught in 4K on the live. I don't know if this phone was hacked or not, but boy was
Definitely
hustling and buffling on the live stream, and sounded like he had a good time. That's all I'll say about that. And then number 2, and this will get Ryan going. Russell Wilson showing up in football pads on the sideline, and he ain't even playing. He's inactive, and he's on the field, getting on the bench, adjusting his pads, and he's like, "Hey, what's the call? Whatever." It's like, brother, you're inactive. Like, just get up, show up in street clothes, or don't even travel, whatever it got to be.
Yeah,
like,
get in the training room, like do something else. Like,
hey,
I can't stand it, dude. I was oh my god,
that is classic Russell Wilson. Just like he tries to be the football guy, but he's just not. Like, he's just so weird. So,
yeah. And then I had another one, but I'm going to deter from it. But all I'll say is his name is Mike McDaniel. But I'll deter from the reason.
We'll talk about that after the recording. So I had another one that I wanted to mention, but we're not.
The elephant in the room. But we get fucking canceled if we talk about it the way the media is steaming right now. Okay, let's get into the analysts, your stat analysis, and then we'll wrap it up with the college football picks and the NFL, the 2 NFL games we wanted to analyze.
Yeah, and y'all, like I said, y'all chime in whenever. But I would like to start kind of like what we talked about with the offenses this week and why you saw a lot of good defensive plays or a lot of good defenses this week. And a lot of, like, if you played fantasy, there's a lot of kickers out there that had a ton of points just because there's a lot of field goals kicked, and it kind of speaks to this. So I thought this was going to be, as the week's gone on, this stat has been thrown out a ton, but I think it speaks to kind of what you saw all week, and it's kind of becoming a trend in week 1 NFL games. So in 2022, the week 1 net passing yard average between all quarterbacks was 232 yards. Or I'll even start in 21. 21 was 259. 22 was 232 yards. 23 was 195. Well, week 1 this year was 187 passing yards. Yikes. So that was the average between all quarterbacks.
I was hoping you would bring it up.
Yeah, that's a very low stat, and I think that just speaks to like how, like, we harped on Joe Burrow earlier or people like that. They struggled a lot. Like, Dak didn't have to do much because they were up a ton of points. Like, or you didn't see a lot of throws downfield between other than Anthony Richardson or like CJ Stroud was kind of tossing the ball around. But other than that, not a lot of high flying offense from the league this week.
Yeah, and I'll chime in there too with like, you might have this one in there, but I think Aaron Rodgers was like one of the highest graded PFF quarterbacks this week, and he was like 13 of 24, throwing the ball under 200 yards, and I'm like, what? Like, this is not a good stat line. Like,
you'll see a trend as we go on here, but we're gonna go ahead. So I was gonna make this simple as can be. Last year I would just throw out a bunch of stats. This year I'm gonna do passer of the week, rusher of the week, and receiver of the week. I think that's a good way to go about it, and then we can kind of talk about our games. But I'm I'm going to start with the passing yard list. If you remember last week, I said that, and I know it's only week 1, but I said that there's going to be 2 guys that I think that are going to lead the NFL in passing yards. Well, if we take a look at the passing yard leaders, number 1 right now is Tua with 338 yards. Number 2 is Stafford, but number 3 is Mahomes with 291, and he played the Ravens, and he looked fantastic. So interesting to keep an eye out on that. I'll be interested to see how all of it plays out, but I really do think Tua and Pat are going to be your air raiders of the year. But passer of the week, I was between 3 guys this week, and all 3 of these guys had really good games. I was between Baker, Mahomes, and Stafford, and I went with Stafford because I think that he lost a receiver, and then he was playing. He was on the road. He lost his 1B receiver, Puka, and his offensive line was musical chairs throughout that entire game. They were moving them all around, and the Lions are a tough team, and it was his former team for 10 years. So that crowd was week 1 playing their former quarterback and being loud about it. So, and the Lions were in the NFC Championship last year. And he threw for 30. He completed 34 passes out of 49. 317 yards. He threw an interception. If you actually watch that game, that interception was kind of iffy. It looked bad, but if you look at the replay, the padding on the back wall is the same color as the Lions jersey and the end zone. So as soon as he threw it and he saw the guy jump, he went like this and was like, oh no. I don't think he saw him because it was right there in the middle of the end zone. So I don't think he saw that. I'm not making an excuse for the interception, but it was like, if you look at it, they did it on the broadcast. So if you look at him throwing into that end zone, that was a tough see. So anyway, I liked Stafford. I thought he looked great. To add to that, Cooper Kupp is back. He had 14 receptions. That's crazy.
Yeah, but the targets were even more crazy. It's like 23 targets or something like that. Some people don't even throw 23 passes. Yeah, some people don't even throw 23 in a game. But nothing but the Stafford one is that's a mistake he almost never makes. Never. And I haven't seen a veteran like him do that. And that's why he was so upset, because he knew how important those points were.
So that's why I went with Stafford over Mahomes. Mahomes played at home against an AFC Championship opponent, the rematch, but they looked good. And then the other one I consider was Baker, but he also played the Commanders, and Commanders defense is awful. So
normally.
All right. So rusher of the week, and I'll start this off with saying, are bell cow running backs back? Maybe so. And that goes with our 185 or 187 average for the week. But I mean, you had Joe Mixon with 30 attempts, 159 yards. Ramondre Stevenson with 25 attempts, 120 yards. Everybody's moving to those committee backfields, but you had Saquon with 24 attempts. You had K9 with 20 attempts. You had Barkley with 24 attempts. They had a ton of you had a ton of running backs this week that were just toting the ball. I mean, it's pretty rare to see a running back have 20 attempts. The other one was Mason. Mason, I think, had 22 attempts. There was a lot of running backs this week that were just toting the ball. Yeah. But I think this week was pretty close because of that. Mixon could have been one of those guys that I was going to pick, but I went with Barkley, man. Barkley tore it up. He had 3 touchdowns. He was catching the ball. I told Jared when we were watching the game, he looks skinnier to me. I don't know if it's just because he's not in the Giants uniform anymore, but he looks more like
slim and toned.
He's still a massive dude. He's still got, thighs the size of a tree, but he's not. He looked quicker to me.
Yeah,
he looked kind of refreshed. I don't know if it was just because it was week 1, but my rusher of the week was definitely Barkley. He looked really good, and I thought that it was more impressive that they had to fly down there, play in Brazil, and if you're paying attention to everything this week, they were talking a lot about how that field was just very subpar, and he was still able to do that.
Yeah.
Receiver of week, this one was super easy to me, and it's Cooper Kupp. Kupp was all the way back, man. I mean, 21 targets, 14 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. That dude was balling, and Puka is out. But I mean, when Cooper Kupp is healthy and Matthew Stafford's healthy too, the ball is going to Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
They just have that connection that is it's hard to beat. And Stafford has that history of like if he has one guy, that one guy is going to go insane, and that goes all the way back to the Calvin
Ballistic.
Johnson days. So those are my 3 guys of the week: passer Matt Stafford, rusher Saquon Barkley for sure. He looked good. And then receiver of the week, it was Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them all. I mean, Cooper Kupp, man, it's amazing. He gets 14 receptions, but he also gets open that many times.
Right.
That's a very tough thing to do. But I think the one that speaks volumes to me from the first week is just the amount of subpar passing. I mean, it was just weird. Like Trevor Lawrence didn't look good at all. Like he had the lead versus the Dolphins. I think he had 17 points decently early in the game to score maybe 24 or maybe get close to 30. And then it was just like done. Like no more, not getting no more scores. And then, Dak had a strong beginning to his game. And then the second half, it was just, we're done. We're not showing any more of our cards. Hand off the ball and get out of there. Yeah. Rodgers was benched later in the game. It just was a bizarre week 1, which is why it's so difficult for me and Hunter to predict those games. For the first 2 weeks, it's going to be difficult.
It's only for the brave.
Yeah. And so as long as people understand that, it's like, all right, look, there's a lot of stuff that's happening. The injuries in training camp, their first snaps of the year. People holding out from contracts. How are they going to perform? Well, I'm on a snap count because I missed all the training camp, but it cost me a loss to the Patriots. You can go on and on and on. But yeah, I like all those leaders, and I agree.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add to like how bad the passing stats were, and just to add insult with the New York Giants because we mentioned them. I think I read a stat, and it's not completely exact, but like I think it was since like week 10 last year, Daniel Jones has had more touchdowns thrown to opposing teams than he has his own.
No,
it was something wild. But since last year and him being a starter going into this year, he's had more touchdowns thrown to the other team than his own team.
What makes it even worse is like all the Hard Knocks stuff coming out about when they were trying to figure out who to draft and like who to keep and getting rid of Saquon. Like I cannot believe the Daniel Jones rhetoric that was being tossed around.
I had a discussion with Hunter about that the other day, and I was like, what are we doing? Like, what is your thought process now, going into this season? Because he's always kind of a little bit defended him. And so he's still evaluating on his end. But I was like, man, after that first game, I haven't revisited with him. We'll probably mention it on the upcoming podcast. But I was like, man, that's it's getting more and more brutal every year. And I get he lost Saquon a big piece, but like he also got his wide receiver 1 and Neighbors. He's got some pretty good accessories, So I mean, we'll see. But it also could be a dab ball issue.
I don't think it's.
I doubt it is, but I would venture to say that when Daniel Jones leaves, Daboll leaves too and goes somewhere else. But
yeah, well, basically what that's going to cause for Daboll is like he's never going to get a head coaching job again.
Yeah, he's going to lose his job because of that.
Exactly,
because they signed him to a 4-year, $160 million contract. Like
that's why they called Daniel Jones Captain Al Qaeda. I mean,
my God.
There's always a New York ball player that they blame for shit like that, and it's one of the funniest things on the internet.
Yeah.
But any more from the stat analysis on your end?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, that wraps up. That's good. All right. I'll let you lead off though with the. We're gonna do our 2 NFL picks. Y'all had 2 games in mind to kind of predict the outcomes and project before week 2 begins. And I believe Bills and Dolphins is one of them. So I guess we'll start that with tomorrow, I guess we're recording on a Wednesday, but the episode's going to be released on a Thursday. So tonight's game versus the Bills and Dolphins. What do you guys got? Start with the analysts.
Yeah, I'll make mine fast. Line was -2.5 Miami, over under 48.5. I've got the Bills in this game just because of all the injuries that Jacob labeled out on the Dolphins. They are playing at the Dolphins field, and the Dolphins are a September team. But I do think the Bills will kind of start to figure out how to get the ball to like Dalton Kincaid and start really figuring out, what receiver they're going to use and stuff like that. I do think it'll be an interesting game, but I think the Bills end up winning I think it'll be a high scoring game. I think it'll be 31-27 Bills.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
So if it were up to me, I would take the over.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the same track with Ryan there. I like Buffalo. They kind of got off to a slow start last week, and then all of a sudden it was like, the whole lean forward in your chair while playing the video game type thing. And
Yep.
I mean, Josh Allen went into God mode. And I mean, that's why we talk about, yes, he did have, I think, a turnover or two or whatever, but when he's on, he's good. And he can do it almost by himself.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the big thing right there. Is hey, he lost Stephon Diggs. He didn't really throw it to Dalton Kincaid much, who we thought was going to be that guy, which he still could be. But he did it, without necessarily a top. I mean, I'd say a top 25 wide receiver. No one's throwing Keelan or whatever his name,
Keon Coleman. Yeah.
Keon Coleman in that top 25. No one's throwing Shakir in that top 25. Dalton Kincaid is, verge
A
of
rising star.
verge of a top 10 tight end type thing. And so I thought they were really good after they got going. But yeah, with those injuries to the running game, Jalen Waddle was dinged up a little bit in that game, but wasn't necessarily listed too much on the injury report. But I just think that defense for Miami is still really banged up from injuries last year, especially on that front seven. So I'm with Ryan. I think it's a high scoring game. I think Bills are going to take this 30-21. So it's slap. No.
Oh boy.
Oh, did I cut out?
Okay, yeah, you're back. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Let's restart. We got. I'm going to take the Bills in this game. Go from there.
Bills this game 30-21.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little bit over the over.
Yeah, it was right at the climax. Just I'm taking Bills. And I was like,
yeah. Well, I started to talk, and then all of a sudden the pinwheels came up, and I was like, oh, God, no.
Oh, here we go.
I heard most of it. I heard all of it.
It was basically all of it. I was like, go ahead and get a clean bite in case we clip it,
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Sweet.
there we go. Sweet. All right. So mine, I think the Bills and the Dolphins game, man. I really think that the Dolphins, my pain point with them is that they're going to be distracted with all of this outside of the sports stuff going throughout the week. I mean, they're doing all these interviews and all this different stuff, and I just think they might be a little distracted. But going into the game, you still got to play Josh Allen, and like you mentioned last week, I mean, who gave older brother the controller type thing? Dude just went AWOL. And I have the Bills winning this game very, very comfortably, which is going to be big down the stretch. I don't know when the next time the Bills play the Dolphins, but in those colder months, that's where Josh Allen, his stock continues to rise beyond hitherto undreamt of, to quote the Avengers. But I've got the Bills in this game 28-13. I think they dominate this game. I think Tua kind of struggles a little bit, and Josh Allen gets in his mojo. But don't be surprised if it is a low-scoring game like it was last year around this time, where the Miami Dolphins won. But I think that this year the Bills get the best of them. They're a very underrated team. Still kind of getting to learn. If they get out, and if the Dolphins get out in front, the Dolphins will take it. But I think the Bills will jump ahead and have Tua playing from behind. So yeah. All right, and then the last one, was it Bucks and Lions?
Yeah.
With Baker's debut or rematch in the playoffs. I guess or I don't think they played each other, but
yeah, I almost mentioned to you guys the Arizona game just because the line was closer, but it was weird. It was it's Arizona and the Rams are playing, and the Arizona's got a favor by -1.5, and I was like,
that seems
yeah. Anyway, Bucks Lions noon game on Sunday. Detroit -7.5 favorites, over under 46.5. I think the Lions win this one pretty comfortably, just because I think the Lions are going to be able to kind of dictate this game a little bit better. They're coming off a good win, overtime win against the Rams, and they looked good in that game for the most part. But I think that the Lions are just going to out tough the Bucks, and I think the Bucks are a tough defense and a tough team. But I just think the Lions have more talent on their side of the ball and a little bit gutsier coach. And the Bucks are coming off a huge win against the Commanders, but look, it's the Commanders. I don't think they're going to look the same this week. I think Baker might struggle. So I have the Detroit. I don't think they're going to cover that spread just because it's week 2, and these games are going to be closer than you're going to see it, like maybe if they were playing in November. But I think Detroit wins this game like 24-17, 24-21, something like that.
Nice.
See, I'm going with, I think this is going to be a big high-scoring game. I think both offenses, they seem to run very well with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and then St. Brown and Williams and whatnot. But I actually got the upset with I have the Bucks winning 30-27. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a high-flying game. And I think, Baker being in this offense, everybody being in this offense for a full year. And then, yes, I know the Commanders' defense is subpar, but just how fluid that offense looked, and not to, take away credit from the players over at Washington, but it looked easy. There was no restriction. There was no almost no confrontation between those two teams. It was just hey, line up, go, score. And it just felt it just looked like the Bucks were just worlds better than them. And so I think after coming off a very high emotional win against the Rams and all that went into that game, I think they're gonna kind of come back down, and I think it'll be a little bit of an upset.
I like that. I was sitting here thinking I might actually take the Bucks, but I think that team shocked the world type stuff. I think they're a dark horse candidate to win their division, because Atlanta did not look very good in the first week, and it is the first week. But you also played, TJ Watt got to him a lot, so they play a team with a good pass rush that looked like it's going to be trouble for Kirk Cousins. But Baker and that group of guys, they've been playing together, and his motor and his self-esteem, his confidence is the better way to say it, has been on the rise since he left the Rams. And technically the Browns, it was kind of like a redemption arc story, where it was kill the boy and let the man be born type thing. Yeah. And now you see Baker looking like Oklahoma Baker. I mean, he was threading the needle with Mike Evans in the end zone. And I was like, man, it's so good to see Baker playing well, because he deserves it. And he's one of those guys that really cares and takes his responsibility. So a little testimony for Baker Mayfield there. Love the guy. Every time he does good, I get fired up. That being said, I don't think his day is Sunday. I think that the Lions will take this game. I just think they play. I mean, these are two really good team-oriented teams, if that makes sense. They play together through thick and thin. They depend on one another. There is no single guy where you go, it has to be him or else we're done. And I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. 20-16 Lions is what I've got, with the potential for an upset. I would not be shocked. So,
yeah, just to add to Baker Mayfield there, he never really got credit for basically turning around that entire Browns organization. Then they got rid of him, and we already went over that. But
I still, to this day, one of my favorite videos. Coming from, I did my time as a quarterback in high school. We all had those days, but just when you get banged and you're playing hurt and you get banged up on the sideline and you get up and you throw that first down marker, and you're like, this dude is giving this organization everything he's got. Yeah. So I'm like, that I never lost respect for him after that. I was like, he's gonna get his what he's due. So
yeah,
all right.
They're basically have moved into you don't know what you got until it's gone.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
That's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen. Yeah. So it would seem. All right. Well, let's get into our two winners and two losers of college football from week 2. and we will wrap this puppy up. The medical guy, I'll start with you down there, since this was your gig from the first week. So, which is a perfect idea. I loved it because it dominated last week's episode.
Yeah.
So you go ahead.
Sweet. Yeah. So I do actually have I have a list of winners, but I'll go with, since you're going with me first, I'll go with my top two. And I know y'all may hate to hear this, but the University of Texas, how they looked,
yeah, they looked great.
Game is game.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they looked just, I mean, not to, well, as Hunter would say, glaze them, but I mean, they just looked incredible. And to go into the big house and essentially have no problem with, I think Michigan was number 10 at the time, to go up there, and everybody was like, you know, kind of doubting them. And like you said, some of your fellow coworkers like, well, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, they look great. Quinn Ewers looked great. Running backs look great. Defense, I was actually really impressed with the defense, you know. And so, I mean, that just surprised me. I didn't expect it to be that much of an ass whooping, but it was. And so, man, I'm going to go with a different one here, but I'm going to say one of my other winners. Okay, maybe not as different, but NIU. Like that NIU game, you know, I don't know if you saw the post-game interview with that head coach, but like he got really emotional and just talking about, like, you know, because we've all been there, and you being at SAM and stuff like that, and me working at SFA for a little bit, like, you know, like some of these games, like how do you really talk to your
people?
Yeah, how do you really talk to your players about, like, hey, let's get out there and try hard and, you know, do stuff, and like, hey, maybe not get hurt type stuff. Because, you know, you're getting paid $1.6 million or however much it may be. And he got, like, you know, really emotional and just showed how much it meant to him, you know, that his guys bought in, they didn't quit, yada, yada. And then I don't know if you saw any of y'all saw anything else, but NIU has what's called the Boneyard. And so what they do is they have a big wall full of plaques of bigger teams that, like, your pay me games that they've actually beat, on their locker room wall, that has a plaque, and it has the name and the score of when they beat them. And so they added Notre Dame, like, that scoring on there to their Boneyard and whatnot. So I thought just that whole situation was super cool. And just to see a coach like that, and like just see how much it means to them, and know that there are, like, a lot of coaches that are just so wrapped up in the game and the individuals and whatnot. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is definitely just speaking from being in the FCS and stuff. It just means, like, Jacob's totally right. That mentality going into those games is completely different, and they're tough, and it's like, you know, it's a lot harder to be out and actually, I don't know, get up on those teams like that, because you have to think about the game differently. It's like David versus Goliath. So it means a ton. Like, I know it means a ton to those coaches. So
yeah. All right, you go ahead, Ron. Your two winners.
Okay, obvious one. He already went over it. Texas versus Michigan. I try to take a different route here, but I'm going with Tennessee.
That was my choice.
Commanded the entire ball. Like, I kind of expected this to be a game, just because Tennessee has had their struggles with, like, ranked opponents ever since Hendred and Hooker left, and they had that big year the first time they beat Bama in, like, forever. But they commanded that entire ball game, and, like, don't sleep on NC State either. They're not an SEC team, but they're a pretty good ball club. What's crazy is, you know, their quarterback is a former all-state volleyball player. Like, did y'all see that stat during the game? He was an all-state volleyball player. But yeah, I just think they've made two big statement wins, and they look really, really good. And I think they're kind of, you know, showcasing that, hey, you know, you've got Texas, you've got Georgia, you've always got Alabama, and Ole Miss is there too in the SEC. But, like, hey, you're gonna have to come through us too. Like, you're gonna have to come in our stadium. You're gonna have to beat us if you want to be a part of this SEC. And we're here to make a statement. So I thought that was a huge statement win. My second one, and I was trying to, like I said earlier, I'm trying to pick ones that I knew y'all weren't going to pick. Yeah, but my other one's Miami. You know, they played Florida A&M this week, but they continue to look excellent. Cam Ward looked excellent. Again, I know, again, they're playing Florida A&M, but they're another team that might make something happen here in the late stages of college football. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they continue on this path, if they ended up in the playoffs the way they're looking. So those are my two winners of the week that are not Texas. And I will, as Jacob said, I am not a fan of Texas. I hate UT, but I also know game is game, and UT looked phenomenal. But the other one I have is Tennessee and Miami.
Yeah, I like those a lot. I'm having to readjust here because I had Miami and Tennessee in mind. I was sitting there. After you said Miami, Jacob was laughing. I literally did this in the mic. I was like, I was like, God. All right, yeah. You know, my first winner is a winner from, I think I picked him as a winner from last week, but I got to put Nebraska in there, man. I think I'm liking him, man. I know Dylan Raiola is a little cringy, but like going out there, Matt Roll's got himself a ball club, and they've been doing a lot of good things. I know they went, they got smoked by, I believe they got smoked by Colorado last year, and I'm telling you, the hype videos from Will Compton are awesome. I mean, that dude kills it. I mean, I'm sitting there dying laughing, going, "Oh my God!" Like this dude is so passionate about his school, and he was right. He said that, sort of right, but the Texas and Michigan game is not bigger than the Colorado and Nebraska game. And I don't think that part's right, but I think Nebraska being a bigger team than Michigan this year is something that he was right about. And then we'll see that throughout the course of the year, possibly a 9 to 10 win ball club. And the other one I had was originally, like I said, Miami and Tennessee, but I had to scroll through a little bit here because I had, I was going to say, I have to just go with that. I was going through, I was like, crap. But, actually, I'll do a dark horse one. Texas State. I heard this spiel from a couple of college football analysts, and they said they actually have a chance to make the college football playoff.
Oh.
So, no, it's crazy.
Yeah,
they're in the –
Well, they took a bid.
Yeah, they took a bid. So, in the Sun Belt Conference, they're 2-0 right now. I know they're just 2-0. But they just played their toughest opponent all year, and they have a great shot to go undefeated and be a part of the group of 5 or whatever the official term is. But they technically have a chance to make the college football playoff. Wouldn't that be
still
crazy?
Got to play Sam Houston, bro.
Hey, it ain't no lock. It ain't no lock.
Still got to play Sam, okay?
No disrespect to my boys down there in your shenanigans now. If they stay out the bars, and they might win that game.
Impossible. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, well, they could beat Texas State.
Staying out the bars.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm only using that one because I had to kind of dig a little bit. But, yeah. And I'll go ahead and flip it, and then we'll go back down the same pattern, and I'll start with my losers. Kind of want mine taken. But my first one's Auburn. And, Thorne, the quarterback, 4 interceptions or whatever. I remember Paul Feinbaum, the SEC special analyst or whatever, that Lane Kiffin's been attacking and attacked on Twitter again this week for saying there's no chance in hell California beats Auburn. And Auburn goes out there and throws – scores 14 points versus California, who hasn't been worth a crap since Jared Goff was there. So I was like, good night. Come on, you're an SEC school. You gotta show up for the most. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 SEC teams in the top 10 right now. Like, come on. And the other one was Oklahoma. Did I steal both of them?
No, not both of them.
Okay, good. Because the other one, I know one of y'all is gonna have. But Oklahoma, man, that was brutal. I mean, I know U of H gets some recruits. I understand that. Like, they're a pretty decent ball club. They've kind of been around for a while in their own conference and stuff. But it's your first year in the SEC. If you think Houston's your toughest opponent, just you wait. I mean, it's gonna be a long season for them. I'm afraid. So. I originally had them possibly losing to Texas, but the more that this season progresses, I think Texas is right on the freaking heels of Georgia. And those are going to be the 2 teams play the SEC championship, and those are going to be 2 of the top 3 ranked teams. Ohio State's probably going to split them at 1 Georgia, 2 Ohio State, and 3 Texas. But Texas, I'm telling you, the way things are shaping up, their toughest opponent is going to be Georgia, and that's it. In terms of SEC where they fare, the way that they're playing. So Oklahoma, big loser this week, in my opinion. Maybe they can shape things up, but I don't think their quarterback currently has the skills to get it done in the SEC. We'll see. The analyst, I'll give it to you.
Well, obviously, everybody's going to know my first loser because I already touched on it. Colorado.
Okay.
I won't speak to any more of that. They are just, God bless America, they're bad. My other loser, even though they won, is Oregon. Everybody's been talking about how Oregon's going to be like the next, everybody, even Saban had him in there in his final college football, playoff rankings. But oh my gosh, they almost blew it to Boise State. And Dylan Gabriel does not look good. This is the second week in a row where they've struggled. I'm not sure Oregon's going to be able to survive going into the later part of the year. I'm not sure they're going to win. I mean, they probably will win like 9 games, but they don't look like what everybody thought they were going to look like. So I think they're kind of on upset watch for sure.
Yeah.
I like those.
See, Boise State was almost one of my winners because of how well they played. They played Oregon.
I should have done.
But my 2 losers, and I'll try to take a different route because I had obviously Iowa and Notre Dame and whatnot.
I'll give you one.
Iowa, Notre Dame, Oklahoma were like my first 3, but I had a list of a few. But Texas Tech has to be a loser for me.
Again, 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, dude.
Fuck them tortillas.
Yeah, dude. They looked decent last week and did okay and whatnot. And then this week they just looked terrible against Washington State. Like the quarterback's gonna put up numbers. Like he still threw for like almost 400 yards and whatnot. But it's like they just did not look good. Washington State won by I think over 2 touchdowns. Like it was just not great. I was hoping Tech was going to be back because it's always fun watching. I'm not a Tech fan, but it's always fun just turning on the Tech game and it's like 52-50.
You're like,
yeah, and like the quarterback's like 37 for 58 with like 4 touchdowns and 412 yards, and it's like it's fun to watch. I guess unless you're like a football purist, and that's your worst nightmare. And then unfortunately, my loser has to be the University of Arkansas this week.
I almost put them on there.
I was sitting there. Yeah, I was sitting there watching because I was working TJC football.
Piggy.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there watching. I pull up the game and I'm like, hell yeah, like screw Jarrett. Like a hog about to put it on Oklahoma State. Don't care. I'm about to text them and be like, yeah, shut the hell up. Like
yeah.
And then I'm like, bet. And then we're meanwhile not playing the greatest game with TJC, and I like turn it on. It's like 1-score game. I'm like, bro, what happened? And then put my phone down. I swear it was like 30 seconds later. It's like top ball game, and I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna do it. And then it's like they trade those bombs of field goals, and I'm like, all right, OT, we got it. We got it. And then all of a sudden it's like end of game, Oklahoma State scores, and I'm like, bro, you gotta be kidding me.
I watched basically the second half of that game, and Arkansas handed it to them.
Yeah, I know, that was the thing. It was just
Unfortunately.
It's like they got up big and then was just like, yeah, we'll just not do anything that we did in the first half. And really the biggest person I feel for is Gramps. He was sweating that game out. And I mean, really, if we want to be honest, I feel bad for Nana. Because she had to sit there and listen to that. To be honest, they probably got turned off in middle of the third quarter. It's like, yeah, it's over. They're up 2 scores still.
Gramps has seen enough. He's been there before,
Yeah, so that was just tough to just. Meanwhile, TJC's about to get beat. Now look on there, and it's like no happiness. So big losers, the Hogs. So.
There is another loser I thought one of you guys were going to throw out there, but I have to put it out there, and it's Penn State.
Yeah,
against Bowling Green. I just had to. I know that somebody in there that's listening to this is going, "What about Penn State?" And I'm like, you gotta throw them in there. But I don't want to go too far into it because none other than my Texas A&M Aggies play them in 2 weeks. So I don't want to. I don't know. Maybe they are pretty damn good, but. I have a tendency to where I say something and it just doesn't happen. It pertains to stuff outside of sport, but it's just like I have this like luck about me where it's like, oh, there's no way they come back to us again in Call of Duty or Rocket League, and then like 2 seconds later, oh my God, we lost by 4. So it's one of those things. Reverse psychology. They're a tough ball. They're a tough ball club, So, but yeah, Penn State, you got to throw them in there, but. And the week after that, we'll see Arkansas at the A&M game. So might be at that game, by the way. Live streaming. But all right, good episode, everybody. I think that wraps up our Stats and Scars episode. We'll probably adjust the time frame a little bit, but these are just a lot of fun to do. And I think we're killing it with these. So appreciate you guys being on once again. This will be out for everybody. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Stats and Scarves is going to be every Thursday at 8 a.m. Our Challenge the Script with College Football 25 on EA Sports will be out every Friday at 8 a.m. This week it was me and Ryan playing LSU at South Carolina. So we'll give our game prediction for that. And then on Sunday, our big episode, Shatter the Script with me and Hunter between 6 p.m. and 7:30, right before Carrie Underwood sings her song. We were a little bit behind on the last one, but, don't worry about it. We'll catch up. But all right. Appreciate y'all. We will see y'all next week, and Shatter the Script.